So now let's look at a basic example of composition in Java. So I went ahead and I created a new class for us called a paper tray, and we are going to use this because a printer usually has a paper tray that's usually part of a printer. So while a printer is a machine, a printer has a paper tray, and so we want to include a paper tray as part of our printer. So I have created a paper tray class, and this paper tray class is pretty simple. It just holds the number of pages, and you can add paper to it, number of pages to it. It keeps track of how many pages it has. It can use a page, and you can check if it's empty. So we are going to kind of simulate a real printer with this. So what we are going to do here is we are just going to create a private variable of type paper tray, and we will call this paper tray, and this will be our paper tray. And we need to make sure that we either initialize it here when the printer is created or inside the constructor. I will go ahead and just initialize it here so that as soon as this variable is created, that it is initialized. We will create a new paper tray. So now we have our paper tray. This is our composition. Our printer now has a paper tray. Now let's go ahead and utilize this to see how you would actually utilize composition in the real world here. So let's go ahead and make our print method depend on having some paper in the paper tray. So we will change it so that when we do our print of printing copies, we will go ahead and print the copies while our copies is greater than 0, like we had done before, and we will put an end condition here, and we will say end paper tray dot is empty, or in not paper tray dot is empty. So as long as the paper tray isn't empty, we will continue to print our copies. And then let's go ahead and send a message if the paper tray is empty. Let's say if paper tray dot is empty, then we will do a system dot out dot println, and then load more paper. So let's go ahead and see how this would work here. So I will go ahead and just leave our example here. In fact, let's just change this to try and print one page. So let's go ahead and run this. So we are going to try and print one page. And you can see it prints load more paper because we haven't actually loaded any paper into our printer. It's trying to use this paper tray, but there is no paper in it. So let's call myPrinter.loadPaper. But you can see we don't have a method on printer to load paper. Printer should be able to load paper, so let's go ahead and create a method. We'll pretend like we already have one, and let's load, let's say 3 pages here. And one thing you can do in Eclipse is you can go ahead and write the method that you want first. I like to program this way so that it's a little bit easier to use your classes by trying to use them first. And then you can just go over here and create a method automatically. Eclipse will do this for you. So now it automatically created this method for loading paper, and I'm going to just change this is that int count. And then what our load paper method is going to do is we are just going to call paper tray.addPaper, and we are just going to add whatever that count is. So we are going to use this class that we are using in composition, this paper tray that belongs to our printer. So let's go ahead and run this and see what happens. Now you can see it did print my printer is on, and if we try to print 3 pages, you can see it printed it 3 times. But if we try to print 4 times, it's actually still letting us print 4 pages. So there's a problem here. We are not fully utilizing our paper tray. So let's go into printer and see what's going on here. Every time we are printing, we need to make the pages in our paper tray be one less. So we will go into paper tray and we will say use page. So we are using a page of the paper tray, so we are treating this paper tray as an object. We are letting it handle its own data. We are just saying we are using a page, which is kind of the benefit of composition here, is that instead of trying to manage all this state and match all this stuff inside of our paper class, we are using a paper tray, a concept of the paper tray. And so we are encapsulating that data in that logic in the paper tray class. So let's go ahead and run this and see what happens now. Now you can see it's behaving as we expect. The page printed 3 times and it said load more paper. So that's the basic idea of composition, is that you just have another class and your class has an instance of that class. In this case, our printer has a paper tray. And I wanted to show you more of a real-world example. So I'm actually showing you how to use a class that you might have through composition.